Welcome, everyone, to our lecture this evening, which is Couples in Parenthood Meeting New Parent Challenges While Staying Close as a Couple. And I'm Nancy Sanchez. I'm the speaker for this evening. I know some of you from some of the programs we offer here, and for others of you, I'm really happy to see you here tonight. It just means there's such a commitment in the community of people wanting to have information and have a discourse around this topic and how to keep the relationship alive and well during the first year or so after the birth of the baby. So that's our topic, and that's who I am. I've worked here at Packard Children's for going on 27 years, and I teach in a few of the perinatal programs, the mothers groups, again, for that many years and more at other hospitals. And my experience comes from not only my experience as a therapist and as an educator here, but from talking to thousands, tens of thousands, I think, of new parents about what the challenges are for them and hearing the solutions they've come up with. And that's what I'm hoping to share with you this evening, is sort of the hot topics that I see over my years of experience, and then the solutions that I've heard from parents. And I'd also like to hear some from you, both topics and solutions. We're being videotaped tonight, as you can see. And so what I would like to do is they're going to turn off the videotape at the end of my little spiel. And you can, as I'm speaking, if you have any comments you want to make or suggestions you'd like to make or questions, jot them down on the little card Felice gave to you coming in the door. And then they'll turn off the cameras for privacy reasons. We'll just have our discussion without being videotaped. But this part is being videotaped so that it can go onto the hospital's online video library, and others can take a look at it. You can too, review it afterwards, okay? So again, welcome. And I really do congratulate you. I think it's quite a testimony to you to be here this evening. First, I wanted to know, how many, do we have a lot of expectant parents in the group? Quite a few. Great, lots of expectant parents. Wonderful. New parents in, say, the first year? Parents beyond the first year? Few. Just people interested in the topic? Some folks? Okay, great. Well, I'll keep that in mind for our whole discussion. But I'd like to start with those top 5 questions that you may have seen in our advertisement for this program. And those top 5 questions are, will having a baby bring us closer together? We'll talk about that at the very start. And then we're going to go into what the biggest challenges are for a couple when a baby arrives into their family. And I have a top 10 on those. And then we'll talk about how couples are meeting these challenges. So we'll go one by one, talk about, sort of describe the scenarios that I have seen and the scenarios that couples have shared with me, and then I'm going to give you ideas that seem to be workable for couples. And then, will we ever achieve work-life balance? We'll do a little discussion about work-life balance, and even if that even exists, and how you can look at work-life balance as you move into new parenthood. And lastly, we'll talk about the resources that are out there for you, and there are some great resources for you. So the first question to be asked is, will having a baby bring us closer together? And here's what the experts say. I say sometimes yes, but not necessarily so. And some of the experts, including Dr. John Gottman and his lab at the Gottman Institute, they've done some clinical research on couples in the postpartum period, and they say that about 60% of couples experience relationship dissatisfaction after the birth of a baby, about 60%. I don't know if you're a half empty or half full person, but seems like a lot to me. You wouldn't quite expect that. But that is what the research has demonstrated. That said, the Callens, who are from that other place across the bay, Berkeley, they've done a lot of research as well. And they say that even though there can be relationship dissatisfaction after the birth of a baby, the rate of divorce at 5 years after the birth of a baby, 5 years into marriage, is much higher for couples who are without children than are for couples with children. So people are hanging in there, if they've had a child and are trying very hard to keep their relationship going. And people sometimes ask, when does satisfaction return? And, the big joke is that, at about 18 years. And we're hoping that doesn't happen for you. We hope you don't go through the dip in relationship satisfaction, and we hope you don't have to wait that long with some of these solutions. It will help you. So was having a child a mistake? No, according to the Cowan's research. So the next statement I'd like to share with you is one by John Gottman, who is one of the country's renowned clinical psychologists working on couple relationships. And he says, breathe that one in a little bit, he says that the real cradle that holds the baby is the relationship between the two of you. So everything we do to prepare for a baby, and everything we do to set up a nursery and to have everything that we need, nothing is quite as important as keeping yourselves as a couple strong. You are a couple first. So keep that in mind. The real cradle that holds the baby is the relationship between the two of you. So let's move on to what those top 10 challenges are going to be. These are ones that I've sort of seen. I've sort of distilled them down to these top 10, and you may come up with some others that we can talk about later. But the first one that I see is fatigue. Fatigue is sort of what colors all the other aspects of the challenges of new parenthood, and we're going to talk about fatigue, the types of fatigue, and some solutions couples come up with for fatigue during that new parent period. Time, the lack thereof, the fast movement of time, the change in time. So time is my number 2 factor. Then we're going to talk about mood, the mood in your household and how that might change when a baby comes into your home. We'll talk a little bit about postpartum mood disorders as well, and how to determine whether that might be a factor in what's going on in your household, and how mood affects your relationship, and remedies for the changes in the mood in your household. Romance is the next one. And romance, if you talk to people who've had babies, they'll tell you that romance it changes, or it's quite a different word after a new baby comes into the household. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of that, what makes for real romance in the postpartum period, and ways to communicate together on that topic. And I talk with my hands. I communicate on that topic and keep your romance alive during the postpartum period. So the next one I want to talk about will be family and friends. And those, over and over again, over the years, I've heard are the real, they're real pressures sometimes. They're blessings, of course, to sort of encircle your new baby with an extended family and friends. But they can also be a stressor on the relationship. Your family, your family. Your friend, and so forth. So we'll talk about the issue of family and friends, and maybe some of your best friends, and how your relationship with them sometimes can change in the immediate postpartum period. Gold medal, what I call gold medal parenting. And I think all parents want to be great parents. All parents try their best. I think in this community, we're used to being great at everything. We have people who excel a lot, and lots of perfectionism here. And the result of your gold medal parenting sometimes can be stressful on the couple relationship. So we'll talk about what that looks like and what you can do about that. Work. I mentioned work-life balance at the start, and we're going to talk about work, some of the things that come up around work for each of you, and how those challenges can be met, and what other couples have done to come to some kind of a life balance, and also have their work as satisfying as it can be. Freedom is another one, or lack thereof. Freedom changes. Your definition of freedom is going to kind of change. And I believe that the process of the first year is sort of a regaining of freedoms slowly. At the very start, your life may feel quite restricted, but as your baby grows in the first year, you're going to find you're regaining freedoms quite often. Money's a stressor in relationships anyway. Isn't it one of the top 3 that you hear about? And money becomes even more stressful for couples when one person is on a leave and another person, or someone wants to change jobs. That happens an awful lot of times right around the birth of the baby. In fact, that happens more often than you would anticipate now if you're expecting couples, that your idea about your job and going back to your job might actually change, and research actually supports that people change in their perspective as far as their job life. So we'll talk about that, and then we're going to talk about the 24/7, what I call the 24/7-ness of the job. Okay, the overwhelming sense that, whoa, this is not like any other project I've undertaken. I'm doing this 24/7. We're at this 24/7. And the initial sort of surprise of that and how that looks in the couple relationship, how couples have worked it out and lived with it to stay successful. So does that sound okay? Those give us quite a bit to go on. And I'd like to begin really talking about fatigue. Let's just talk about fatigue. I'm just putting the word up there so that we know when we're chatting here, sort of what umbrella we're under. Fatigue, to me, is the number 1 factor in the postpartum period that can have a really harmful relationship effect. There's fatigue just because of the forces of labor and delivery. Fatigue because of the broken sleep with a new baby. You're sleeping less and you're sleeping in a more broken kind of way. The fatigue of the postpartum period has been likened to battle fatigue, actually, like soldiers in the foxhole. They don't know when they're going to be called into action again, so the sleep that they get is not necessarily a good sleep. They don't go through the stages of sleep the way you do when you sleep a nice contiguous 8 hours. You're always kind of listening for that baby. And those of you who have babies know that's true. You're even in the shower and you think you hear the baby cry, or something happens across the street and you think, did the baby wake up? So sleep really changes a lot for people, and it really is trying on a relationship. If you're one of those people who needs 8 hours of sleep and not 7.5, this will be the biggest challenge probably of new parenthood for you. And so think about that now, and think about the 2 of you. Are you both larks? Are you both owls? Is one a lark and one an owl? How do we each function with less sleep, and then how will we work this out, in the early postpartum period anyway. And there are lots of ways that people do that. One is to tag team, so one sleeps while the other is with the baby, and then vice versa. Some people do this particularly at night when the baby is a few weeks old and you're able, if you're breastfeeding parents, then when the baby's able to take a bottle, one person, usually it's a mom, will, and this is just what I see, usually the mom, will feed the baby in the early-ish evening, 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then she'll go to bed and try to get some sleep, put the baby down and go to bed. And then at the next feeding, mom's partner will feed the baby. And so mom is going to sleep through that feeding, and then at the next feeding, mom's on duty again. So oftentimes, the other person is the person who has to go to work in the morning, so maybe that person had to feed at 11 o'clock at night, but then that person gets contiguous sleep from 11 to, say, 6 or something. So both of you, for a while, get a solid chunk of sleep. And the baby's taking milk from a bottle, which isn't actually a bad idea to teach the baby after the first few weeks how to take milk from, that milk also comes from other sources, so even if it's your own milk. But that seems to work very well. Visitors can kind of fit in this category too. You can have lots of visitors who don't realize how fatigued you are. You look like you look fine and all, and so they're going to want to stay. They're excited for you and excited about the baby. One way to handle that is to set some limits as to time. I always tell dads, look at her and say, honey, you look tired. Why don't you go take your nap now? And that usually tells the people who've come to visit that maybe this is the end of the visit. Really try to control that for a little bit. When your baby sleeps, sleep when your baby sleeps. That's most important. It's really tempting to check your email or some social media, or blow dry your hair or do something like that. In the beginning, if you can conserve your sleep that way, it can be really, really useful. So, and I'm going to want to hear a lot of the other solutions that might be in this room as far as how people work on sleep. And the schedule you set for your baby, by the way, can be anything. So if you are both owls and you'd rather put the baby down at 11 o'clock at night so that you can sleep, longer period of time, do that. The babies come to your life and make it work for you. That's extremely important. So that's the story on fatigue. Advancing now? Yeah, you got the word time. Okay, so time. Time changes. Time changes in meaning. People talk about before the baby and after the baby. It's that you sort of look back at memories of times past and you think, who watched the baby that day? Oh, that's right, we didn't have that baby yet. So time is completely new, and it's scrambled somewhat, because your life is so busy. You are changing diapers and feeding baby and answering calls and so forth from well-meaning family and friends and so forth. So the days just fly by, and sometimes they fly by so quickly that you don't have personal time or couple time. So it's really difficult to carve out both personal time and couple time. And I tell people that some of the remedies for this certainly accept offers of help from people. And be prepared to ask for what you need from people. So if people say, oh, can I help? Don't just say, oh, that's okay. Really make some assignments to your friends and family so that some things do save time for you. You have a lot of time-saving resources, certainly in this day and age and in this valley, depending on your resources, but it doesn't hurt if you can to order in some food or get some housekeeping help. At least temporarily, so that you have time for yourself and for your partner and for your baby, rather than, spending your time on preparing food and preparing the house and so forth. I always advise that people give each other personal time before couple time. So each of you needs personal time. You have time together with the baby, but you also still need some time with yourself, even if that time only means time to take a shower, or time to eat a little breakfast. So it really helps to, in order to be able to come together as a couple, that each of you has a little bit of personal time. And that's particularly true if the mom is the one who's staying home and dad goes back to work for a while. It's particularly true for the mom who stays at home. So I've heard from couples things like, well, dad comes home, give dad a little time to, kick off the shoes, check the email, get a snack, whatever. And then you do a shift, give the baby to dad, and dad's had a few minutes to adjust to being home, and then mom has some time, just even an hour where she has some personal time. That makes time later when you want to have some couple time, have a nice discussion or watch a movie or be close to one another. That makes it more acceptable if you've each had a little bit of personal time. So I can't stress enough how personal time has to come before you can do couple time. Really, really important. Reduce your standards. A clean house and so forth aren't really all that important, and anything you can do to reduce the demands on your time really could be helpful. Don't have to answer that email right away. Could answer it, tomorrow. The third challenge I'd like to talk about a bit is mood, and the mood in your household can change. Certainly, as I mentioned about fatigue and postpartum recovery figure into the change in the mood in your household. This is a good time to talk about baby blues and postpartum depression and other postpartum mental psychological disorders. Baby blues is something that occurs usually a couple days after the birth of the baby. It is related to the change in hormones, the birth of the placenta, and the sudden crash in hormones in your body. So you're absolutely thrilled to be here with your new baby. However, you feel like a dark cloud just came in over your head, and you're sitting there holding your beautiful baby, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and you're crying. Or you just have this sad, impending doom kind of feeling. That's baby blues. It's very, very typical. It happens with many, many women. And I'm saying that because it's important for your partner to know that it happens and it passes. It should pass anyways. So whatever you can do, give her a little TLC, take over a little bit of the baby duties for a while so that she can kind of shift out of that postpartum baby blues. If you think about premenstrual syndrome and the change in the hormonal shift during the premenstrual period, and then you think about the gigantic crash in hormones after the placenta is born, you can understand how that can, and it's somewhat similar. It's sort of that kind of feeling. Now, the difference between that and postpartum depression tends to occur at about 2 to 3 weeks after the birth of the baby, or the baby blues continued and then moved into more severe depression at 2 to 3 weeks after the birth of the baby. So if you're going along, things seem to be going okay, and then you reach a point where you feel that same kind of feeling of, dark cloud over your head, loss of interest in your baby or yourself, inability to sleep or too much sleep, not hungry or too hungry. All of the symptoms, of depression that we might talk about can figure in for postpartum depression. If you've had a history of depression in your life, you might be a bit more prone to postpartum depression, and it would certainly be something to talk with your physician about now if you're one of the prenatal people, and just kind of discuss, how are we going to manage that if that comes up. But the difference, first of all, is in timing. Baby blues, very common. Postpartum depression, not so much. 20 to 30% maybe of moms have a bit of postpartum depression. And you want to be proactive on postpartum depression. And the reason I say that is that they have done tests on brain waves of babies who are being cared for by depressed moms. And early on, they can see changes in those brain waves. So babies reflect that depression. It's quite astounding. And I always feel that depression is like a virus. It kind of goes through the whole family. Then your partner's depressed and the baby's depressed, and the mood in the household is not good. It's not happy. Babies who are raised by depressed moms, depressed parents, tend to have influences later, social and cognitive delays, just based on the fact they were raised by depressed parents. So if I haven't sold you enough on being really proactive about it, get help, talk to your doctor, start maybe with your OBGYN, and see if this is indeed postpartum depression. Sometimes anemia, by the way, masks as postpartum depression. You could be anemic after the birth of the baby, so again, check with your OBGYN. Make sure you're taking prenatal vitamins after the birth of the baby as well to keep your iron levels up. But definitely be proactive, and let's get it treated. If you're the partner, you might need to kind of encourage her to get some help, because you want that help. There are other mood disorders that can occur, but they are extremely rare. Psychoses are extremely rare. Some of the crazy things that you hear, in the media, don't happen very often at all. But of course, you with those kinds of things, you would want to be proactive as well. Some remedies for the changes in your mood is to get out. Get out with your baby, get out with other couples, get out and get fresh air and some sunshine, which we're fortunate to have you around here. Encourage your partner to eat and sleep and drink lots of water. Try to get into kind of a regular routine. Those are some of the remedies for actual mood disorders. But beyond that, the mood of the household can change even if there isn't actual depression. Babies can be challenging. You folks can tell us that, right? I mean, and you don't want to be frustrated and angry with your baby. Hopefully not, right? You're not going to take it out on your baby. So sometimes it's really easy to project that frustration onto your partner. And then you both kind of do it back and forth. So there's kind of a barking back and forth at each other, but the person who's really causing that stress is the little one in the crib. So keep that in mind. Take a deep breath and say, wait a minute, we're barking at each other. Let's slow this down a bit, or talk about the frustration. Talk with one another about the frustrations that you've had during the day. Baby wouldn't eat, baby wouldn't take a nap, or whatever, so that you're both on par with that, and that doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to just do it this way then. Number 4 is romance. And romance is really important, right? For couples to stay a couple, you started with romance and you want to keep that romance going. There is for many couples a bit of grief over the loss of the previous terms of the relationship when a baby comes. It's like, oh, we used to be able to sleep in, we used to be able to run out to a movie, we used to be able to sit on the sofa and cuddle and kiss and so forth, and that's different now. So the spontaneity and the great affection and even the good sex that you've had before will change. Most couples report that. So acknowledging that for a while that might change and that you're sad about it, and telling each other that you're sad about it, I really miss how it used to be, is a great way to move from that grief onto the new normal. And it will be a good new normal as well. So, and the fatigue figures in, the changes in your time and the mood, all the things we talked about before, and the hormonal changes. Also, I'd like to mention satiation, which is a crazy term that I came up with. And that means that particularly for the mother, if she's breastfeeding, having a baby on you and at the breast all day and hugging and cuddling, all those wonderful things about having a new baby, you're being touched all day. And sometimes by the end of the day, you feel like, okay, I just want to I'm satiated as far as touch. Whereas mom's partner comes home and wants touch, right? So it creates kind of a conflict for couples, and again, my advice on that is personal time first and then couple time. So give mom a chance to take a bath or a shower or go out and get some fresh air, and being tolerant about that can be very useful. Scheduling time for when we're talking about romance, scheduling some time for yourselves, scheduling a date, a weekly date, and that sounds impossible sometimes, but it's so useful to put in your calendar, even if it's a half hour, once a week, where the neighbor comes over and watches the baby, and you can take a walk around the neighborhood or go out for ice cream or a coffee or something. But having that to look forward to just get back in touch with being a couple. We had one of our childbirth teachers who used to ask the couples, I don't think any of you have been asked this in your classes, but she used to give them postcards. That's how long ago it was. Postcards, and they'd had to write down the date of their first date, where they were going to go, and who was going to take care of the baby. And after that baby was born, she would collect them, and after that baby was born, she'd mail it out to them, like to remind them, you said you were going to do it, you need to do it. You need to go out and be with one another. It's still the most important thing. You're the cradle that holds the baby. So a regular date night is great. Be thinking now of babysitters, possible babysitters, Look at what your friends do and how they get babysitters, and do it. It's absolutely important for you and important for your baby, and laugh together. Laughter is like orgasm. It's a release of tension, right? So sometimes just laughing about the situation, talking about, gosh, the good old days, and now look what we have, and sort of letting out a good laugh at how things go sometimes with a new baby can really be helpful. I want to say a word here about sex and the hormonal changes that happen in the postpartum period, and particularly with breastfeeding. The decrease in estrogen can cause a change in libido for women, and can also cause some drying of the vaginal vault. So our advice has always been to lubricate before you initiate intercourse. If you're looking forward to your first intercourse, or you're just starting out with that, lubricate and communicate is what I say. So be ready for that, and also communicate with one another your readiness. So maybe one person's ready to start after the birth of the baby and the other person isn't quite yet. instead of just avoiding, really talk about it. Or talk about, gee, I wish I was ready, but I'm not quite ready. Either one of you can be the one who isn't quite ready after the birth of a baby. So talk about that. And it really is, I see it as a chicken and the egg kind of situation. You know, the age-old question is, does sex bring us closer? So that, or do we need to feel close to have sex? You know, which comes first, the sex or the intimacy and then the sex? And the old adage is that in general, men like to have physical intimacy in order to feel close, and women like to feel close in order to have physical intimacy. It might be just the opposite in your family, but it's just an interesting question. So once in a while, just doing it might really help you to feel close at times. And I know it's hard to with a new baby in the household, but having that regular date and that regular time might be really useful for you. So, family and friends. I see family and friends as certainly a great blessing for you and your new baby, but also family and friends can be a stressor for the couple. Your family, my family. Your friends, my friends. There is a psychoanalytic person, Selma Freyberg, and her group have a term they call ghosts in the nursery. And actually what Selma's talking about with ghosts in the nursery is just sort of everything we bring. When you picture the two of you over the baby's crib, right? Looking at the baby, and all of the interactions you've had with folks over the years, all the things that have happened to you and how they influence how you interact with the baby. I like to sort of extend that term, I still like that term, to mean you're there with your baby, and also they're all of your ancestors and all of the grandparents and aunts and uncles and friends. They're all kind of there too. They all have a stake in this baby. They're all, you know, this is their legacy too. So there are a lot, you'll find that suddenly people, you're really important to people. Maybe they didn't care where you went for Thanksgiving, but the year you have a new baby, there are going to be tussles in the family as to where you go for Thanksgiving, because everybody wants to be close to you and that baby. And that can be very stressful. Or child rearing advice or unwarranted advice from one or the other side of the family. So you both come from kind of different traditions and different ways of doing things, and you were raised by two different sets of parents. And so those parents will sometimes give you advice that you do not want or that is upsetting to you. And then who talks to the parents about it? Our rule of thumb is that if it's your wife's parents, your wife talks to them about it. If it's your, you know, so it's your own child, because grandparents can take, you know, we're not doing it that way, kind of information better from their own child than from their child-in-law, you know? So keep that in mind and work that out between the two of you. Okay, talk to your mom about we don't sleep babies on their bellies anymore, you know, kind of thing. I think that's really important that you decide early on who's going to handle that. Talking to grandparents and aunts and uncles about what the pediatrician says often works. Just use, I've learned this from all parents, you know, say the pediatrician says, we need to do it this way. I know you used to do it that way in the olden days, you know, or when I was a baby, but now we're doing it this way, and this is what the pediatrician says. So sometimes that helps a lot. You have to be kind of a little unit, the two of you as a couple, and protect yourselves from unwanted advice and from kind of the tug and pull of family. Family's a great thing. If you have siblings who have had a child, sometimes the grandparents and so forth have been seasoned. And sometimes those siblings can give you a lot of advice that you may or may not want to have. So that's a situation too. The other thing I talk about a lot is your friends. Sometimes your friends will give you advice. Sometimes your friends haven't had kids yet and don't quite understand what you're going through. And that's a sadness for some couples, you know, to see that, you know, the friends don't quite get it as to what your reality is of your life right now. So I always suggest tolerance and compassion for people who are involved, because where everybody sort of goes in the nursery, everybody is around you and the baby, and everybody cares about that. So you really have to be quite tolerant, and it's tough to do when you're tired and out of time and so forth. But don't let the family and friends come as a wedge between the two of you. Work that out between the two of you in a loving way. Super important. Gold medal parenting is what I mentioned at the start, and we all try to be great parents. Everybody wants the gold medal for doing it just the right way. You want to show the world that you're a great parent. You maybe want to be the parent that you didn't think you had, and now you're going to be the best parent ever. And in this attempt to be the best parent ever, you can lose sight of each other. You can become super great parents. You're such a great mommy and daddy, but you've lost your couple connection because you're spending so much time worrying about and being anxious about whether we're doing it right. How should we do it this way and that way and this way and that way? So it's very important that you think about how much you're trying for perfection. There's a whole theory in psychology out there about the good enough parent. And actually, the better parent is the good enough parent and not the perfectionist parent. So try to be the good enough parent for your baby and try not to sort of fall prey to parenting perfectionism, gold medal parenting. And learn your own baby. Your baby really is the book. You folks, I have compassion for you because you have so much information out there with the World Wide Web and with all the different blogs and all the different books and the advice of family and friends and so forth. So it can be quite confusing and you don't know which way to go. Take a look at your baby, decide between the two of you how you'd like to answer that particular question, situation, and give it a try. If the decisions that you make are the right ones for your baby. And sometimes I say that and people look at me like, what? You're the best parent this baby can have. No one knows this baby as well as you do. After 24 hours with this baby, you are the best parent. And keep that in mind, that you already are. No pediatrician, no mother-in-law, no website knows this baby the way you do. And if you use that as kind of your mantra, that you're the best parent for this baby and your decisions are good ones, it's very important. I hear parents say, yeah, but we don't want to get into bad habits with the baby. I don't want the baby to get addicted to the pacifier, as if babies were running around having all kinds of addictions and habits. Babies, I like to change the word. I like to say patterns. Your baby can, and those who have babies know, your babies can get into a pattern and then 2 weeks later they're in a different pattern. Or maybe there's a pattern that the baby's kind of stuck in, and you're the adult, you're the parent, you can kind of gently shift that baby right out of that pattern. So don't worry so much about what the baby's pattern is going to be, what the baby's addiction is going to be. Keep in mind that you are in control and you are the best parent for this baby already. So I almost hesitate to say this, but I have to say it because I've always said it in my classes. An old-time pediatrician who actually was a Stanford grad, so I give him some credibility, said to me once, you know that you've really arrived as a parent when you can tell a fib to your pediatrician. And when you think about it, that's true. If your pediatrician asks you, I'm sure any pediatrician hears me say this, they're going to just scream, but it's true. If your pediatrician asks, are you giving the baby 20 minutes of tummy time every day? And you think, oh, my baby really won't take that. Yeah, sure, I am. It's a little bit of a white lie, but it means that you've decided to do what's best for your baby. Really, really important, and I always kind of keep that lovely piece of advice in mind. So, let's talk about work-life balance here. Does it even exist? Many experts say no, and I kind of agree with that. I like to just say life balance, because if we say work-life balance, we're kind of trying to achieve a very even, energy towards our job, energy towards our home, 50-50 kind of thing. That's not going to happen. There are going to be times when work's going to be 70 and home's going to be 30, or vice versa. So what's more important than work-life balance, in my mind, is to feel satisfied with all aspects of your life and to give each aspect that's calling to you, your attention. So there are disruptors when you have a new baby to to your life that come from work. People will call you from work. I don't know if people who've already had a baby had that already. They call you, when are you coming back? Or could you just answer this one question? Or you worry about not answering those things or not keeping up with your email about losing your position or your status at work. Those things come up. You worry about how it'll be to return to work. How are you going to sleep and have a schedule, and where are you going to find childcare? Work brings up a lot. Guilt about missing work. Stress of finding new work. As I said at the beginning, a lot of people change jobs for some reason right around the time of the birth of a baby. And also a lot of people, and research supports this, a lot of people have a different idea after the baby's born about their job, of when they're going to want to go back. Lots of people change that, either go back sooner or go back later. It's really hard to determine now how you're going to feel about your job afterwards, because your whole life has changed. And keeping that in mind and talking with one another about that. Another, on the couple relationship, resentment can come up around work. Feelings about, the person who stays home says, well, you get to go and talk with adults all day, or you get to actually have lunch, that kind of thing. Or the person who goes feels this tremendous responsibility to the little one and the partner at home. That can be very tough on a relationship. So having compassion for each other when we talk about work is really important. Fathers need to be kept involved, and it's something we talk about a lot here. The most recent research tells us that fathers' involvement from the very beginning, not when the baby starts to smile, not when the baby starts to crawl, but from the very newborn period, has been shown to have an influence on the baby's social development, academic development. Dads need to be in there right from the start. And it's real easy for us, I'm speaking of women now, for us to kind of circle the wagons with our sisters, mothers, friends, and so forth when the baby's a newborn, and dads are kind of left out of that circle. And so that's really an important aspect to keep in mind. How's dad going to stay in the circle? So the reason I bring it up under work is what we see is that if a dad is excluded from that, immediate contact with the baby care and so forth, what dads tend to do is work more. Because they're still in the back of their minds sort of providing for this family, and one person's not working right now, and I've got to, so they do the best they can. And of course, then we have the mom saying, why are you taking on that project right now? Why are you always at work? Well, because that sort of overworking is a result of not being involved with the baby. So I can't stress enough that father involvement is really, really important, and it keeps the two of you together on this beautiful project of having a baby. And I'm sure you're going to have more ideas about work to talk about. So freedom, of course, now that you have a child, freedom is no longer free. You need to plan your free time. So you always need to consider if it fits in the baby's schedule, if you want to get away, who's going to watch the baby, or you can bring the baby along. You can't just sleep in, as I mentioned. You can't just walk out the door for sushi. You just, your freedom really feels a bit cramped when you have a new baby. And sort of the freedom to kind of talk things out as a couple even. You used to maybe sit down and have an issue that you really wanted to resolve, and you had an hour to talk about it. You're not going to have an hour probably for a while, unless it's the middle of the night when the baby's sleeping. So freedom is really an important factor as well, or lack thereof. So plan small moments of freedom for yourselves, as I mentioned, for each of you, and then for yourselves together. And schedule little moments of freedom for yourselves. Just as I'm suggesting you schedule in your romance, schedule in times when you are free, baby free. You can do something rather spontaneously. Take the baby with you when possible. They're pretty portable. I know some of our pediatricians, as we go into the winter months, may have some advice about taking your baby into crowds, but take your baby along with you otherwise, to out for fresh air or to do something spontaneous. They can handle it. They don't have to be on a perfect schedule in a crib every single time they sleep. contrary to what some of the experts are saying. Be open to offers of help for people, and even do that spontaneously. Take little moments of freedom that people are going to offer to you, and keep in mind that the process of the first year of having a baby is slowly gaining little bits of your freedom. And I know we have a few parents here who have, maybe an older baby, and you may see that has been true. At the beginning, it felt like you had no freedom, you had no spontaneity at all. And as the baby got a little older, maybe started napping, maybe started sitting on a blanket and playing with toys, you gain and gain and gain your freedom to do things that you want to do afterwards. So freedom is important. Now, money's a stressor in relationships. It's the classic, we're talking about money is tough for people, and it's one of the number one stressors and causes for discord in a relationship. And babies cost money. The Wall Street Journal says that babies who are born, these days and grow to 18 years of age, in that time you'll spend between $250,000 and $500,000, depending on your own resources and how kind of you're going to spend on that baby. But so that's scary. That's a lot of money. And that puts stress on the working parent, or both working parents, or parents wanting to get back to work. And it can bring up some resentment from the person who is bringing in the paycheck, as well as the person who is not bringing in the paycheck. There are power issues when one person is working. You've both been working all through your relationship. Now one person's working and one person's staying home. There can be power issues that come up as far as who makes the money, who holds the power. Whose time is more important? Who gets to spend on things? Whose opinion is more important? All of that figures in when we talk about money. So our advice to you is to decide on a philosophy of money. Talk about it now. It's one of those great conversations. What are our shared values? What do we want to spend money on in our lifetime with our child? For the child, for ourselves. Predetermine your post-baby budget. And do that at a neutral time and in a neutral place. You can have a meeting on money, maybe once a week. Check in. What do we need? What do we want? How can we do this? Really important just to be aware more than anything that money, between the two of you, you may already know this very well, that money is a stressor, and find ways to talk about it, to meet about it, and to plan it out proactively. And lastly, lastly but not leastly, the 24/7-ness of having a baby in your home is a stressor for couples. For some people, it's a realization. For everyone, it's a realization. For some people, it's a real shockaroo. You suddenly have this sense of overwhelm. Maybe the first few weeks of having the baby in the home is kind of a honeymoon for you. But then you realize this baby is here for the next 18 years, day and night, 24/7, whether they sleep or not, And that sense of overwhelm that comes from realizing that the baby's going to be with you all the time can really be trying on the individual and on the relationship. So that 24/7-ness kind of sums up the other 9 of those top 10 challenges, and it really can wear on you. I always use the metaphor of, the two of you are sitting in your chairs, or you're sitting there on a love seat, the two of you, and things have gotten really comfortable. Suddenly, this new person comes into your life and is going to share the love seat with you, and everybody has to adjust, And suddenly, this person is on the love seat with you all the time. So it has to get comfortable for you. And you have to do whatever you can to make it comfortable to have that baby on the love seat with you at all times. So I always tell people, as in any life transition, time is going to heal somewhat. And you will get used to the idea of the baby being with you all the time, paying attention to one another and being compassionate with one another. Compassion is one of my favorite words, being compassionate about your partner. You know your partner, you talked when you dated, you know everything about them, their likes and dislikes, the things they've gone through, and who they are today. keep bringing that up for yourself and know who your partner is so you can have compassion for them in their parenting tasks. Know sort of what the challenges are for your partner and have compassion for what those things are. It's soon going to be difficult to remember what it was like in the time before the baby. But also, in the meantime, be really aware if your partner is seeming overwhelmed, how can you step in and help with that overwhelm? Communicate it. If your partner's not noticing that you're just ready to scream, say, okay, this is it. I just need 10 minutes. Communicate again your sense of overwhelm so that the 24/7ness doesn't go any further, and do some problem solving together as a couple. You're going to use the remedies that we talked about in the other 9 of the top 10, and you're going to come up with some of your own creation. And that's going to lessen, I think, the feeling of overwhelm that you have, and you start to put in all of these great techniques that couples have come with over time. So I'm just looking at kind of wrapping it up. We did answer the question, will having a baby bring us closer together? Maybe, hopefully. But the research says that it can cause a stressor, so it's really important to take a look at that. The biggest challenges, I guess we've talked about them, the top 10 challenges, and what some couples do to meet these challenges, and what some of my own advice on that. Work-life balance, talked about that, I guess. And as I said, it's life balance, not work-life balance. It's just feeling like your whole life is something you want to be present in, and you are enjoying all the different parts of your life, and you feel like you have time to communicate when things feel out of balance. So I would say to you to understand that each of you in the couple is going through a unique and tremendous transition based on your role, on your background, as I said, and your ability to deal with changes, actually. Care for each other, take rest periods, laugh, and do small things often for one another, just little things that express your affection for one another. Plan your time together and keep it no matter what. Plan to have some time and keep the communication going. Don't just take the temperature of the relationship. So sometimes those communications become, here's what's wrong between the two of us, okay? You're constantly looking and evaluating the situation. I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk about how the relationship's going, but don't make every talk that you have about what's right and what's wrong about what's going on in the home, okay? Just communicate about what's going on in your life, in your day, and your partner's day. Let your partner know when you're stressed. Let your partner know when you're overwhelmed. Speak with kindness, reminisce about the old days, but look at your baby now and know that you've entered into a great new adventure. And I would ask you when you go home tonight to think of 2 things. A trait in your partner that makes or will make him or her a good parent, and then a trait in your partner that you hope your baby inherits. 2 traits, okay? And have that conversation on the way home tonight. So be thinking about it now. It's kind of fun to think if you are still prenatal parents, or even if you're not. What is that trait that you appreciate in your partner who's a new parent? And what do you hope the baby will inherit from that? And it's a great conversation for keeping you close together. Trust in the fact that this period of new babyhood, new parenthood, is going to pass, but you as a couple are going to pass through it successfully by staying in tune with one another and keeping your communication going and laughing, about what's going on. So, some of the resources, I promised I would talk to you about some resources and groups. We have mother-baby groups here at Packard Children's, and we strongly encourage you, if you're not already attending, to come to our groups and talk with other parents who are going through the very same life stage you are. And it's not a gripe session. We have a lot of fun, and people take turns talking about what the week was like. And believe it or not, everybody's interested in how many times your baby woke up during the night. So check our website and come to ours or go to others. Classes, sometimes going to classes is really fun as a couple. You know, there are baby sign language and music classes and all kinds of fun little things you can do together to play with and have fun with your baby. And there are activities in the community. This community is great for that. There's story hour at the library. Almost every library on the peninsula has story hour, and they're for newborns. So that'll be fun for you as a couple to go to something like that and sing and read stories to your babies. So being involved in your parenting role together is a great resource. Your doctor, your therapist, your pastor, whomever you go to, or each other, you know, rely on those resources, particularly if there's some mood disorders, some kind of a depression involved, but also just if you need to be bolstered a bit. And really great resources out there, and other parents, talking with other parents you meet at the park or your friends who are parents about what the postpartum period was like for them. And sometimes your own parents can give you insight too. It's interesting, our grandparent class, by the way, we have a grandparent class, and I don't know if I mentioned that, but it's a great class for grandparents when we're talking about friends and family and involvement with your new baby. But in our grandparent class, we find that a lot of the grandparents ask about postpartum depression. So we know that back in their day, people were experiencing some depression but weren't talking about it, and so they were very keen to hear about it and to know if they could help you with it. So talk to your parents if that's the kind of relationship you have, and find out what it was like for them in those early months with a new baby. Books, carefully chosen. I notice I say carefully chosen blogs and websites. There's a lot out there for you, but it's kind of fun to see what other people are saying in some of those discussions. A couple of books that I mention up here, and there are lots more, but one, since I've talked about Dr. John Gottman, John and Julie Schwartz Gottman, I have a book called And Baby Makes Three, and it talks a lot about this postpartum adjustment period for a couple. And it really is, again, the emphasis on your couple relationship. And then Baby-Proofing Your Marriage. It's kind of a humorous but important discussion by 4 new parents. You might want to take a look at that one, and there are plenty others out there for you to see as well. So use those resources. And I guess the last thing I have to say to you is best wishes on this new adventure. If you're in the middle of it or you're about to launch into it, and make it an adventure that you're on together. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for listening this evening.